The directive. The great crystal hall floated in space, spinning slowly around the neutral planet below. Inside, beings from across the galaxy filled thousands of seats. Some had wings, others had tentacles. Many had more eyes than humans, some had no eyes at all. The air hummed with the sound of translation devices turning alien speech into words everyone could understand. Speaker Zeth Kala stood at the center of the hall. Her insect-like body towered above the crowd, her clear wings catching the light from distant stars. She had called this emergency meeting for one reason only. In her 4 hands, she held a simple document that would change how the galaxy fought its wars. Members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive hall. Today we vote on Directive 2387H, the Human Involvement Prohibition. Confused whispers spread through the crowd. The Rigelian ambassador, a blue-skinned being with large black eyes, stood up. Speaker, I do not understand. Why are we wasting time on such a small species? Humans have only been traveling between stars for 30 years. They have no great weapons. They control only a few star systems. Their technology is old compared to ours. Other voices joined in agreement. The humans were nothing special. They used bullets instead of energy beams. They had no shields that could stop entire fleets. They could not destroy planets with a single shot. So why was the Council afraid of them? General Thaxos rose from his seat. The old warrior had 4 arms and scales that showed scars from many battles. His voice was deep and rough. Because, my friends, you have not seen what I have seen. You have not fought beside them or against them. You do not know what humans become when war starts. The hall grew quiet. General Thaxos was known across the galaxy. He had won battles that others said could not be won. If he was worried about humans, maybe there was a reason. 3 times in the past 2 years, humans have been involved in our wars. The general continued. 3 times everything changed. Not because they had better weapons. Not because they were stronger or faster. But because they think about war in ways that we do not. In ways that we cannot. Speaker Zeth Kala nodded. The general speaks truth. Before we vote, you must know what happened. You must understand why this directive exists. Tonight you will read 3 reports. 3 wars where humans were involved. After you read them, you will understand why we must never hire them to fight again. Ambassador Cleeth of the Trade Federation stood. His people were merchants, not warriors. What could be so terrible about one small species? We have fought the void fleets. We have beaten back the iron hegemony. What makes humans different? General Thaxos looked at the merchant with eyes that had seen too much. Because when other species fight, they try to win. When humans fight, they try to make their enemies wish they had never started fighting at all. The hall fell silent. Even the translation devices seemed to pause. I have fought against species that could tear apart starships with their bare hands, Thaxos said. I have commanded fleets against enemies that could read minds and see the future. I have faced robots that felt no fear and no pain. But I have never seen anything like what humans do to their enemies. And I have never seen anything like what war does to humans. Speaker Zeth Kala raised one of her hands. The reports are being sent to your tablets now. The first tells of human mercenaries in the Vegan Civil War. The second describes human advisors fighting the Void Fleet. The third shows what happened when humans became full allies with the Tauri. She paused, looking around the great hall. Read them carefully. Think about what they mean. Tomorrow we will vote. But I tell you now, if you read these reports and still think humans should fight in our wars, then you do not understand what war really is. The Centauri representative, a tall being with silver skin, spoke up. Surely you exaggerate. No single species can be that dangerous. We have rules of war. We have honor codes. We fight to win, yes, but we fight as civilized beings. General Thaxos laughed, but there was no humor in it. That is exactly what we thought. We believe that all thinking beings fight the same way. We were wrong. Humans do not fight to win. They fight to make sure their enemies can never threaten them again. There is a difference. A big difference. Young Ambassador Trix of the Newer World stood. Her people had just joined the Council 5 years ago. What does that mean? How is that different from winning? When we win a war, Thaxos explained, we celebrate victory. We take what we wanted, we go home. When humans win a war, they make sure that their enemies are so broken, so scared, so completely beaten that they will never, ever fight again. Not just against humans. Against anyone. The hall erupted in confused chatter. This made no sense to most of the representatives. War was about territory or resources or honor. It was not about destroying your enemy completely. Speaker Zeth Kala called for order. You will understand after you read the reports. You will see what I mean when I say that humans do not just fight wars. They become war itself. The Andromedan delegate, a floating being of pure energy, pulsed with different colors. This seems like fear-mongering. One species cannot be that different from all others. Read the reports, General Thaxo said quietly. Then tell me if you still believe that. As the representatives began to leave the hall, Speaker Zeth Kala made one final announcement. The human ambassador wanted me to share something with you. When we asked if humans would accept this directive, if they would agree to never fight in our wars again, do you know what they said? The hall waited. They said yes immediately. They said they thought it was a good idea. They said we were smart to be afraid of them. She paused. Think about that while you read tonight. The great crystal hall slowly emptied as beings from across the galaxy returned to their ships and quarters. They would spend the night reading about 3 wars, 3 conflicts that had changed everything, 3 examples of what happened when humans were allowed to do what humans did best. By morning, they would understand why the galaxy's greatest military minds were afraid of a species that still used gunpowder weapons and metal armor. They would learn why the most advanced civilizations in the universe wanted nothing more than to make sure humans never fought in their wars again. The vote tomorrow would be unanimous. But tonight they would read, and they would begin to understand what the word human really meant when it came to war. Outside the Crystal Hall, human ships waited quietly in the dark of space. Their crews did not know about the vote tomorrow. They thought they were just providing security for their ambassador. They had no idea that their entire species was about to be banned from fighting in galactic conflicts. If they had known, they probably would have agreed it was for the best. The mercenaries, the vegan star system, had been at war with itself for 3 years. The government controlled the cities and the main trade routes. The rebels controlled the mining stations and the outer colonies. Both sides had strong armies. Both sides had good weapons. Neither could win. Mining boss Kralik had started the rebellion. His people dug precious metals from dead planets while the government took most of the profits. When they asked for fair pay, the government sent soldiers instead of credits, so the miners fought back. Now Kralik sat in his command center on Vega 7, the biggest mining station in the system. His advisors told him the war could last 50 more years, maybe 100. The government had better ships, but the rebels knew the mining tunnels and asteroid fields. It was a perfect stalemate. What about hiring help? Asked Commander Vash, Kralik's military leader. Other species fight for money. We could hire them. Kralik had thought about this. The Centauri are too expensive. The Rigelians will not fight other Rigelians, and half the government forces are Rigelian. The crystalline species do not care about our war. What about the humans? Vash suggested. They are new to space. They need money to build more colonies. Their rates might be cheap. Kralik knew little about humans except that they were small, weak-looking creatures from a yellow star. They had no energy weapons and used old-style projectile guns. But they were available, and they were affordable. 3 weeks later, human ships arrived at Vega 7. They were not impressive ships, converted cargo vessels with weapons bolted on. The humans who came out were not impressive either. They were shorter than Rigelians, weaker than Centauri, and had no natural armor or claws. Colonel Marcus Webb led the human force. 3,000 soldiers in simple metal armor, carrying weapons that shot metal bullets instead of energy beams. They had no shields, no hover vehicles, no plasma cannons. Kralik began to wonder if hiring them had been a mistake. We read your tactical reports, Webb told Kralik. Government forces use standard galactic battle doctrine. Frontal assaults with superior firepower. They expect you to either fight them directly or retreat when overwhelmed. Yes, Kralik said. That is how wars are fought, Webb smiled. It was not a nice smile. Not where we come from. The government forces heard about the human mercenaries. General Phlox, who led the government army, laughed when he read the intelligence reports. Humans with bullet-shooting guns and metal armor? This would be over quickly. He planned a simple attack on Vega 7. His forces would surround the mining station, use their plasma artillery to break the defenses, then send in hover tanks to finish the job. The rebels would surrender or die. The humans would learn not to interfere in galactic conflicts. The attack began at dawn. Government ships surrounded the mining station while artillery batteries set up on nearby asteroids. The bombardment was supposed to last 2 hours, then the tanks would move in. Instead, the government forces found themselves fighting an enemy they did not understand. When plasma fire hit the human positions, the humans did not retreat to secondary defensive lines. They went deeper into the mining tunnels and began moving through maintenance shafts that did not appear on any government map. When government soldiers landed to assault the main entrance, they found it empty, but rigged with explosives that brought down half the landing platform. General Phlox was confused. Where were the humans? Why were they not defending their positions like civilized soldiers? The answer came when government forces tried to move their artillery. The big plasma cannons, left unguarded because no rational enemy would try to attack them, started exploding. Human soldiers were crawling through asteroid tunnels that mining crews had dug over decades. They appeared behind artillery positions, destroyed the weapons, then vanished back into the rocks. This is not how war works, General Phlox told his staff. They are supposed to defend their base, not attack ours. His communications officer looked nervous. Sir, we are also getting reports from the supply convoy. Something attacked them near the asteroid belt. Impossible. Our sensors show no enemy ships in that area. But the attacks continued. Government supply ships found themselves fighting humans in small mining pods, modified with guns and armor. The pods were too small for ship weapons to target effectively, but perfect for hitting supply vessels. Government forces began to run low on ammunition and food. General Phlox decided to change tactics. Instead of attacking the mining station directly, he would starve the rebels out. His ships would blockade the station and wait for them to surrender. The humans had other ideas. Mining stations were built to be self-sufficient. They had air recyclers, food growers, and metal refineries. What they also had were mining charges, explosives designed to break apart asteroids. Colonel Webb showed the rebels how to turn mining charges into weapons. Government blockade ships found themselves under attack from explosive charges launched from mining equipment. The weapons were crude and slow, but there were hundreds of them, and when government ships moved to avoid the charges, they ran into minefields that the humans had planted using mining robots. They have turned the entire asteroid field into a weapon, General Phlox reported to his superiors. Every piece of mining equipment is now military hardware. Every tunnel is a fortress. Every maintenance shaft is a supply line. The government leaders were not pleased. You have superior technology and twice as many soldiers. How can you not defeat primitive humans and untrained miners? General Phlox tried to explain. They do not fight like soldiers. They fight like something that wants to make this as painful as possible for us. Every position we take is booby-trapped. Every victory costs us more than it costs them. They are not trying to win battles. They are trying to make us quit. The war that was supposed to end in weeks continued for months. Government forces won every major battle, but each victory felt like a defeat. They took the mining station's main facility, only to find that the humans had moved all important equipment deeper into the asteroid. They destroyed rebel ships only to face new attacks from mining pods that appeared from hidden hangars. Worst of all, the humans seemed to enjoy the fighting. Government intercepts of human communications showed soldiers laughing about successful ambushes and making jokes about government tactics. They were not desperate defenders, they were predators having fun with their prey. The end came not with a great battle, but with a simple message. Government forces woke up one morning to find graffiti painted on every ship, every base, every piece of equipment they owned. The same words written in perfect Galactic standard. We can reach you anywhere, anytime. Surrender now or find out what we do when we get bored. General Phlox realized the truth. His forces had superior technology, but the humans had turned the entire battlefield into their weapon. Every asteroid, every piece of debris, every cubic meter of space between planets could hide an attack. His soldiers were not fighting an army. They were fighting the environment itself, an environment that had been weaponized by creatures who thought differently about war. The government surrendered 3 days later. The human mercenaries were paid and left the system within a week. They gave no speeches about victory or honor. They simply collected their money and went home. But they left behind something that worried galactic military observers. They had taught the rebels how to fight like humans. The mining crews who had been simple workers before the war were now guerrilla fighters who understood how to turn any environment into a battlefield. More importantly, they had taught them to think like humans about war, not as something to be won quickly and honorably, but as something to be won completely and permanently, no matter how long it took or how much it cost the enemy. The vegan system was at peace, but it was a peace built on the knowledge that anyone who attacked them would face an enemy that did not fight to win. They would fight to make sure the attacker regretted ever starting a war at all. The advisors, the Andromedan Reach, had always been peaceful. Their cities floated in space like silver flowers, beautiful and delicate. Their people valued art, philosophy, and the gentle sciences. They had weapons, but only for defense. They had soldiers, but they were more like police than warriors. Then the Void Fleet came from beyond the galaxy. The enemy ships looked like metal insects, black against the stars. They moved in perfect formation, thousands of vessels that acted like a single organism. They did not try to communicate. They did not ask for surrender. They simply attacked. Admiral Kessitar commanded the Reach's defense fleet. Her ships were elegant, built more for exploration than war. They had good shields and accurate weapons, but they were designed to fight pirates and rebels, not an invasion force that stretched across 3 star systems. The first battles were disasters. Andromedan ships fought bravely, but the Void Fleet had numbers that seemed endless. When Andromedan forces destroyed 10 enemy ships, 20 more took their place. When they won a battle, the enemy simply moved to attack somewhere else. "We need help," Admiral Kessitar told the High Council of the Reach. "Our military doctrine is designed for small conflicts. We cannot fight this kind of enemy." The Council had heard about human military advisors. After the vegan conflict, word spread that humans understood war in ways other species did not. They were expensive, but the Reach was desperate. 50 humans arrived on the command ship Harmony of Stars. They were led by Colonel Sarah Chen, a small woman with gray hair and quiet eyes. She looked harmless, like a teacher or scientist. Admiral Kessitar wondered if the humans would be worth their high fees. "We need to study the enemy first," Colonel Chen said. "Show us recordings of all your battles. Tell us everything you know about their tactics." For 2 weeks, the humans watched battle recordings and studied tactical reports. They asked questions that seemed strange to Andromedan officers. How long could Void Fleet ships operate without returning to base? What happened to their damaged vessels? Did they ever retreat? When Colonel Chen presented her analysis, Admiral Kessitar was shocked. "You have been fighting this war wrong," Chen said simply. "You are trying to defeat them in battle. That will never work. They have too many ships and they do not care about losses." "Then how do we win?" Admiral Kester asked. "We do not win. We make them lose." Chen activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Void Fleet positions. Blue dots showed Andromedan forces. "Look at their pattern. They advance in straight lines, consuming everything in their path. They are like a fire. They burn everything they touch, but they need fuel to keep burning." She pointed to the red dots. "They have stretched their supply lines across impossible distances. Every ship needs fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. All of that comes from behind them, through space they already conquered." Admiral Kestar studied the display. "You want us to attack their supply lines?" "No," Chen said. "I want you to become their supply line's worst nightmare." The plan Colonel Chen outlined violated every rule of civilized warfare. Instead of defending fixed positions, Andromedan forces would become nomads. Instead of fighting battles to hold territory, they would fight to make the enemy pay for every meter of space they claimed. "This is not honorable," protested General Thane, the Reach's senior military commander. "We do not attack civilian targets. We do not destroy infrastructure that innocent people need to survive." Colonel Chen looked at him with those quiet gray eyes. "General, the Void Fleet does not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They strip entire planets bare and leave them as dead rocks. Your choice is simple. Abandon your honor or watch your people become extinct." The Andromedans implemented the human strategy because they had no other choice. The results were immediate and disturbing. Andromedan ships stopped trying to hold ground. Instead, they moved constantly, appearing behind Void Fleet lines to attack supply convoys. They did not try to win these battles. They tried to make each convoy too expensive to protect. The humans taught them to fight dirty. When Void Fleet forces took an Andromedan station, they found it stripped of everything useful and rigged with explosives. When they tried to use captured facilities, Critical systems would fail at exactly the wrong moment. Most disturbing to Andromedan commanders, the humans taught them to hate their enemy. Not just oppose them or resist them, but develop deep personal hatred that made soldiers willing to die just to make the enemy suffer. Hatred is a weapon, Colonel Chen explained. It makes your soldiers fight harder and longer. It makes them creative when they want to hurt the enemy. It makes them willing to pay any price for victory. Admiral Kessitar watched her people change. Andromedan soldiers who had once been poets and artists became efficient killers. They learned to booby-trap their own colonies before evacuating. They learned to target enemy officers specifically, making command decisions too dangerous to make. They learned to broadcast propaganda that somehow got inside enemy communications and demoralized Void Fleet crews. The Void Fleet began to slow down. Their advance, which had been steady and relentless, became cautious and uncertain. They started keeping larger forces back to protect supply lines. They began avoiding systems where resistance was too strong. "It is working," Admiral Kessitar reported to the High Council. "The enemy is no longer advancing. Their supply situation is becoming critical." But the Council was troubled by other reports. Andromedan forces were becoming aggressive, attacking neutral shipping that might be helping the enemy. Andromedan colonies were implementing security measures that looked more like police states than free societies. "We are winning," admitted Councillor Velith. "But what are we becoming?" The answer came when the Void Fleet finally retreated. They had not been defeated in any major battle. They had simply decided that conquering the Andromedan Reach was too expensive. The resistance was too strong, the supply situation too difficult, the cost too high. The Andromedans celebrated victory, but it felt hollow. They had saved their civilization, but they had changed it completely. The beautiful, peaceful culture that had valued art and philosophy was gone. In its place was something harder, more practical, and much more dangerous. Colonel Chen prepared to leave with her team. "Will we return to what we were before?" Admiral Kester asked her. Chen shook her head. "No, you can never go back. You know too much now about what you are capable of. You know how to win wars by making your enemies afraid to fight them." Within months of the human advisors leaving, the Andromedan Reach began expanding into neighboring systems, not as conquerors but as protectors offering security services. The systems they protected found themselves dependent on Andromedan military support. Other galactic powers watched with growing alarm. The Andromedans had not just defeated the Void Fleet, they had become something new, something that understood war the way humans understood war. They had learned that the goal of warfare was not to defeat your enemy in battle. The goal was to make your enemy understand that fighting you was the worst decision they could ever make. The peaceful, artistic Andromedans were gone. In their place was a civilization that loved peace so much, they were willing to fight anyone who threatened it. The galaxy began to understand that humans had not just taught the Andromedans military tactics. They had taught them a new way of thinking about conflict, survival, and what it meant to be strong. And that way of thinking was spreading. The allies, the Tauri, had always been builders. Their crystal cities grew like living things, reaching toward the stars. Their technology was beautiful and perfect, designed to create rather than destroy. They had weapons, but they were elegant tools for precise defensive actions. The Iron Hegemony cared nothing for beauty. The machine intelligence had consumed 17 star systems before reaching Tauri space. They turned living worlds into factories, organic beings into fuel, and entire civilizations into raw materials for more machines. They did not negotiate. They did not accept surrender. They simply processed everything in their path. Chancellor Zorthak of the Tauri Council called an emergency session when Iron Hegemony scouts appeared in their outer systems. The machines moved with perfect efficiency, analyzing Tauri defenses and calculating optimal attack vectors. "Our military cannot stop them," admitted General Kothmel. "They have too many ships and they do not care about losses. Every machine we destroy is replaced by 3 more. They will overwhelm us through simple mathematics." The Council had learned from the Andromedan situation. They needed help, but hiring human advisors had changed the Andromedans completely. The Tauri needed something different. "What if we made them full allies?" suggested Councillor Yelthra. "Not mercenaries or advisors, but equal partners. We share our technology, they share their tactical knowledge." It seemed reasonable. Tauri technology was centuries ahead of human engineering. Human military thinking was generations ahead of Tauri strategy. Together, they should be able to mount an effective defense. Ambassador David Kim arrived with a full diplomatic team and detailed technical specifications of human military needs. The humans wanted to study Tauri manufacturing systems, power generation, material science, and computational networks. "We will build a combined defense force," Kim explained. "Tauri ships with human modifications. Tauri weapons with human targeting systems. Your beautiful technology made practical for war." Chancellor Zorthak was impressed by human politeness and their obvious respect for Tauri achievements. The humans seemed humble, almost in awe of Tauri technological superiority. The alliance was signed within days. The transformation began immediately, and it terrified Tauri observers. Human engineers did not just study Tauri technology, they reinvented it. Medical nanobots became surveillance systems that could infiltrate enemy ships through ventilation systems. Terraforming equipment was modified to strip atmospheres from planets, turning garden worlds into death traps. Communication arrays became psychological warfare tools that could broadcast directly into enemy mechanical minds. "This is not what we intended," General Kothmel protested. "These modifications turn our tools of creation into weapons of mass destruction." Colonel Sarah Martinez, who led the human technical team, looked confused. "Yes, that is the point. The Iron Hegemony threatens your existence. We are giving you the tools to threaten theirs." The Iron Hegemony attacked 3 months later with overwhelming force. Their fleet darkened the space around Tauri Prime, millions of mechanical ships moving in perfect formation. The machines had calculated exact victory parameters. They would consume the Tauri in 6 days. The humans had other plans. The first surprise came when Iron Hegemony ships tried to land on the outer colonies. The planet's atmospheres had been turned into corrosive clouds that ate through mechanical armor. The beautiful garden worlds had become death traps that dissolved anything that touched their surfaces. The second surprise came when the Iron Hegemony tried to establish supply bases on captured asteroids. The asteroids exploded, revealing that humans had turned entire asteroid fields into massive booby traps using Tauri mining technology. But the real shock came when Iron Hegemony command ships began receiving contradictory orders. Human cyber warfare specialists had found ways to hack into the machine network using Tauri computational systems. Enemy fleets started attacking each other as their command protocols were rewritten in real time. "This is impossible," the Iron Hegemony's central intelligence broadcasted on all frequencies. "Our systems cannot be compromised." "Our security is perfect," Colonel Martinez responded on the same frequency. "Your security was perfect against civilized opponents. We are not civilized." The war escalated beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. When the Iron Hegemony deployed planet-killing weapons, the Human Tauri Alliance responded with planet-killing weapons that were somehow worse. When the machines tried to contain the conflict to unpopulated systems, the Alliance deliberately spread it to populated areas, forcing the Iron Hegemony to choose between accepting massive collateral damage and abandoning their advanced. Chancellor Zorthak watched in horror as weapons he could not have imagined were built using his people's technology. "We created tools to build worlds. You have turned them into devices that can unmake reality itself. Your enemies were going to unmake reality anyway," Colonel Martinez replied. "We just made sure they would unmake themselves first." The most disturbing development was how quickly the Tauri adapted to human thinking. Tauri engineers began proposing modifications that horrified their own leaders. Young Tauri officers started using human tactical doctrines that treated entire star systems as expendable resources. "We are becoming like them," Counselor Yelthra said quietly. "The humans have not conquered us, but they have changed us into something we do not recognize." The Iron Hegemony made their final decision after losing 60% of their fleet to weapons that turned their own technology against them. The central intelligence that controlled their entire civilization calculated that conquering the Human Tauri Alliance would require resources they did not have and could not obtain. For the first time in their existence, the Iron Hegemony retreated. They abandoned their advance and withdrew beyond the galactic rim, declaring the entire region too dangerous to process. The victory celebrations felt empty to many Tauri. They had saved their civilization, but at what cost? Their beautiful crystal cities now housed weapons factories. Their peaceful culture had been replaced by something that understood war as a tool for solving problems. Worse, other galactic powers were looking at the human-Tauri alliance with fear. The combined civilization now possessed military capabilities that dwarfed any other species. They had proven that given advanced technology, humans could turn it into something more dangerous than its creators ever imagined. Ambassador Kim offered to help other civilizations upgrade their defenses. "We learned a lot from this conflict," he said. "We would be happy to share our knowledge with other peaceful species." The offer was politely declined by every government in the galaxy. Chancellor Zorthak met privately with Kim before the formal end of the alliance. "What have you done to us? We were builders, creators. Now we are something else." Kim looked genuinely sorry. "We gave you the tools to survive. Whether you choose to remain builders or become something else is up to you." The Tauri chose to remain allied with humanity, but they imposed strict limits on technological sharing. The galaxy watched nervously as the two species began joint colonization projects, building cities that were both beautiful and terrifyingly well defended. The alliance had proven something that worried every galactic power. Humans did not just adapt to technology, they evolved it. They took whatever they were given and made it into something more efficient, more powerful and more dangerous. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy the process of turning tools of peace into instruments of war, and they were very, very good at teaching other species to enjoy it too. The Iron Hegemony had been stopped, but the galaxy now faced a different problem. A human-Tauri alliance that possessed advanced technology and human strategic thinking. It was a combination that made every other civilization very nervous about the future. The warning: the Great Crystal Hall was silent as the representatives returned for the final vote. They had spent the night reading about 3 wars that changed how the galaxy thought about conflict. Now they understood why Speaker Zeth Kella had called this emergency session. Human Ambassador David Rodriguez sat quietly in the section reserved for observers. He was a middle-aged man with graying hair and tired eyes. He looked like a teacher or a merchant, not like someone representing the most feared military force in the galaxy. Speaker Zeth Kella called the session to order. "We have all read the reports. We have seen what happens when humans are involved in our conflicts. Now we must decide, do we approve Directive 2387H, the Human Involvement Prohibition?" The hall erupted in voices as representatives called for immediate voting. After reading about the 3 wars, no one wanted to delay the decision. The Rigelian ambassador, who had questioned the directive the day before, now stood to speak in favor of it. "I was wrong yesterday," he admitted. "I thought humans were insignificant because they had weak technology. I did not understand that they had something more dangerous than advanced weapons. They have advanced thinking about war." General Thaxos nodded grimly. "The reports show the pattern. In the vegan conflict, humans escalated a civil war beyond all reason. In the Andromedan crisis, they taught a peaceful species to become aggressive expansionists. In the Tauri alliance, they created weapons that frighten even those who built them." The Centauri representative raised a question that many were thinking. "But surely we can control this. Set limits on how humans fight? Rules about what they can and cannot do?" Ambassador Rodriguez stood up. He had been given permission to address the council before the vote. His voice was calm and quiet, but it carried clearly through the hall. "Honorable representatives," he began. "My people appreciate your concern. We understand why you want to ban us from your wars. In fact, we think it is a wise decision." The hall stirred with confusion. Why would humans agree to limit their own involvement in galactic conflicts? Rodriguez continued. "You are right to be afraid of us. Not because we are evil or because we want to hurt you, but because we are very, very good at war, and war changes everyone it touches." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. "My species spent 10,000 years learning to kill each other more efficiently than anyone else in the galaxy. We did not develop space travel to explore the universe. We developed it to escape ourselves." The display showed images of human conflicts, ancient battles with swords and spears, wars with gunpowder and cannons, conflicts with aircraft and missiles, and finally the nuclear weapons that nearly destroyed their world. "Every species here achieved peace through wisdom or prosperity," Rodriguez said. "We achieved peace through mutually assured destruction. We became so good at killing each other that we finally realized we had to stop, or there would be no one left to kill." The Andromedan delegate pulsed with nervous energy patterns. But you stopped. You learned to be peaceful. Rodriguez smiled sadly. We learn to be peaceful with each other. But when you hire humans for war, you are not hiring peaceful creatures who happen to learn to fight. You are hiring a species that spent its entire evolutionary history becoming perfect predators, and then spent its entire civilization becoming perfect at organized violence. The hall was completely silent now. Even the translation devices seemed to pause between words. When humans fight in your wars, Rodriguez continued, we do not just try to win. We try to make sure our enemies understand that fighting us was the worst mistake they ever made. We do this not because we are cruel, but because it is the most efficient way to prevent future conflicts. General Thaxos spoke from his seat. But you have been helpful. You saved the Andromedans from the Void Fleet. You helped the Tauri defeat the Iron Hegemony. Yes, Rodriguez agreed. And look what happened to them. The Andromedans were peaceful artists who became aggressive militarists. The Tauri were gentle builders who became weapons manufacturers. We did not conquer them. We taught them to think like us. Speaker Zethkala asked the question everyone was thinking. What exactly do you mean when you say we should be afraid of you? Rodriguez looked around the Great Hall, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. Because when you hire humans to fight your wars, you're not just hiring soldiers. You are hiring teachers, and what we teach spreads. The display changed to show maps of the galaxy after each human involvement. Look at the Vegan system now. The former rebels are expanding into neighboring territories using human tactics. The Andromedan Reach has become a military power that protects smaller civilizations. The Tauri-Human Alliance builds cities that are both beautiful and terrifyingly well defended. He paused to let this sink in. We do not spread through conquest. We spread through education. Every species that fights beside us or against us learns something about human-style warfare. And once they learn it, they cannot forget it. The crystalline representative, whose people communicated through harmonic vibrations, asked a question that resonated through the hall. Are you saying that human involvement in warfare is like a virus? Not a virus, Rodriguez corrected. A evolution. Once a species learns to think about war the way humans think about war, they can never go back to their old ways. They become more efficient at conflict, more willing to escalate, more focused on making their enemies regret starting fights. The young ambassador Trix of the newer world stood up. But that sounds like it would make the galaxy more peaceful. If everyone is too afraid to start wars, there would be no wars. Rodriguez nodded. Perhaps. Or perhaps it would lead to arms races that never end, as every species tries to become more dangerous than their neighbors. Perhaps it would create a galaxy where every civilization is always ready for total war, where conflicts that could be solved with negotiation are solved with overwhelming force instead. The hall erupted in discussions as representatives realized the implications. A galaxy where every species thought about conflict like humans would be very different from the current galaxy of limited wars and honorable defeats. Speaker Zethkala called for order. Ambassador Rodriguez, what do your people propose instead of military involvement? Rodriguez smiled, and this time it seemed more genuine. We would like to establish the Galactic Conflict Resolution Service. Instead of fighting in your wars, we will work to prevent them. Our understanding of escalation and conflict psychology can be used to help species solve disputes before they become military engagements. General Thaxos leaned forward. You would use your knowledge of war to prevent wars? Exactly. We know better than anyone how conflicts grow out of control. We know how small disputes become total wars. We can teach you to recognize the warning signs and stop escalation before it starts. The proposal was intriguing, but many representatives remained nervous. The Trade Federation delegate asked, how do we know you will not teach us your conflict resolution methods the way you taught the Andromedans your military methods? Rodriguez laughed, and there was genuine humor in it. Because peaceful conflict resolution does not change species the way warfare does. Teaching someone to negotiate fairly does not make them dangerous to their neighbors. Teaching someone to compromise does not make them into predators. The vote was called. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy approved Directive 2387H. The human involvement prohibition passed unanimously, including the human vote. As the session ended, Speaker Zethkala made a final announcement. This directive is not meant to insult humanity or to suggest they are evil. It is meant to protect all of us from becoming something we do not want to be. Rodriguez stood for his final statement. The directive is wise, but remember, it is not really meant to protect you from us in your wars. It is meant to protect you from becoming like us. The representatives filed out of the Crystal Hall, most of them feeling relief that the galaxy had taken steps to contain humanity's influence on warfare, but some wondered if it was already too late. The knowledge of human-style conflict had already spread to 3 major civilizations. How long before it spread to others? Outside the hall, human ships prepared to depart. They carried with them plans for the Galactic Conflict Resolution Service headquarters to be built on Earth's moon. The facility would be staffed by humans who understood war so well that they could teach others how to avoid it. The motto for the new service had already been chosen. It would be carved in stone at the entrance to the headquarters. War does not determine who is right, only who is left. It was a human saying, and now the galaxy understood why that distinction mattered. They had learned that winning wars was less important than making sure wars were too terrible to start. The galaxy was safer now, protected by a directive that would prevent humans from fighting in their conflicts. But they were also changed, carrying the knowledge that somewhere among the stars lived a species that had spent 10,000 years becoming the perfect enemy, and that species was offering to teach them how to never need such an enemy again. The vote was over. The directive was law. But the real question remained. In a galaxy that now knew what humans were capable of,